Welcome, Hudson Valley, to this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. This week on In Touch, I speak with Jim LaValle, clinical pharmacist and author of Cracking the Metabolic Code. Grocery prices are more mind-boggling than ever at the moment. LaValle says you can stay healthy and budget conscious, and it's actually easier than you think. LaValle shares strategies for staying healthy on a budget. We discuss what blue zones are and how we can model our lifestyle around them. Not just that, we talk about the dangers and connections our diet has towards dementia. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Jim and myself here on In Touch. Hello, Hudson Valley. You're listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's public affairs and issues program. Merry Christmas, everybody. This is a very special episode as you guys are getting ready for all the presents, the gift giving, the partying, all that. Remember to keep in mind that you still need to have a gut tomorrow, and you're probably going to have a lot of delicious foods in the next few days and everything, but just keep this in mind for the new year. You want to be able to eat well and eat on a budget, and we got somebody that will be able to help you out with all those New Year's resolutions. I'm really excited to speak with him today. We have national expert Jim LaValle, clinical pharmacist and author of Cracking the Metabolic Code. Now, let's face it, grocery prices are mind-boggling right now, and it's so hard to even get eggs. You know, prices have risen 60% in just 2022 alone. And while many of us are trying to wait out inflation or see if we have to raise our own eggs raise our own chickens to have eggs, I should say. What's the best way of going about this? How are we going to be able to even eat healthy while managing all this? And Jim has all that stuff for us today. Really excited. Going to start off 2024 really strong. Wow, that's so weird to say. But Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing very well. So one thing that we always like to do here on In Touch when we started off an episode, give an overview of who we're talking to and the kind of background that's going to be brought into this episode. So can you give a little bit of background on yourself and what's gotten you into being a national expert here on health and wellness?
Sure. Well, I'm a clinical pharmacist and board certified in clinical nutrition. I mean, I had the biggest clinic in the country doing personalized care for individuals in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm the academic co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. So that's about 40,000 doctors around the world, about 15,000 in the U.S. that I help to train. And I've done programs working with athletes and teams in all 5 major league sports. I work with educating, the folks in the military. And then I work with people with everyday needs. So whether it's, hey, I got problems with weight loss, I want to train harder, or I got a problem, I got a health problem, I need to overcome it. That's been my expertise for the last 40 years. And yes, I can't believe it's 2024 either. So,
I think that's the most mind-boggling thing about this episode at this point. Where did this year go? But yes, absolutely. You are totally no slouch when it comes to being a leading expert. You definitely exemplify that term to the fullest degree, and really excited with everything that you have to say with health and food in general. One of the things that I really wanted to start off with when it comes to the best ways to eat is that a lot of leading experts recently have been saying to look into blue zones. And I've never heard the term blue zone before. So could you go into that for us? What is a blue zone? Where are some of these blue zones? And what is so great about them that we should be looking into?
Sure. So blue zones are basically areas of the world where there's a greater population of the people that live to 100.
Oh, wow.
So there's more centenarians in the blue zones. In Icaria, Greece, Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Sardinia in Italy, as well as Loma Linda, California. So these are areas that are known. And there's some other areas too, but these are the key areas that have been studied. And look, I think it's pretty easy to understand why I'd want to be in Sardinia, right? Beautiful, great water, but the reality is there's some common things that are involved in living that long life. One of them is diet, right? So in general, when you look at the diets of these individuals, they eat more plant food. And I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, I'm not pushing that. But what I am saying is people eat a lot more vegetables. That's one. The other thing is that they move a lot. They stay active as they're aging. If you're going to go to Sardinia, you better be prepared to walk up 18-degree inclines going up and down your steps to carry your food. And so it's exercise and movement. And I think that's really important. I mean, there's people here that will get in their car to go get their mail at the end of the driveway. You know what I mean? So they're not moving. Incredibly important. The third, of course, is that they have a strong social structure where as they're aging, they're not isolated and alone. They're part of the community. They're part of family. It's important to realize that food is really important as a part of this. I mean, I've done longevity care and lecture on longevity and anti-aging, and it really, you can't get beyond, I need to make better food choices, but it's expensive these days. Right. And I think that's one of the issues that people have. And, you go out and you buy a bunch of fresh produce, you open up your fridge, and 4 days later, you got mold growing on it and you're throwing it away.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, especially if you're living alone, or like for me, my wife and I are empty nesters now. And, we had a linebacker that lived in our house, my son, who we required a full refrigerator at all times, right?
Yep.
And so adjusting to that and knowing smart ways to pick food that will help you to, kind of at least align the food side of blue zones, I think is incredible. It's incredibly important for people. And so that's really where it starts. I mean, we obviously, look, Okinawa, great oceans. I carry a Greece, right? So I think part of that too is, it's the amount of work that people are doing. We work awfully hard here, and I'm just as guilty as anybody of, we have this culture here in the U.S. where we push. And I think there's a part of that needs to be aligned as well.
Amen to that. I'm really glad that you brought up aspects that don't necessarily have to do with the food when talking about the blue zones, talking about the geography, talking about just the overall terrain, being active all the time, and then also the fact of not being isolated. You're right. Those communities are so prevalent when it comes to the interaction. While it's sad to say in many ways, even though the U.S. is a very bustling place, we've also become very isolationist in our own worlds, our own little circles and desires. And I think that's something that we need to work towards as well, along with getting the food right. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. I appreciate you saying that.
My father came to live with us when he was 79 years old. And he could have easily went to a community. He could have went into a nursing home, for that matter, right? He was 79. He just had a surgery for cancer. He decided to come live with us. And he lived 13 years. And he lived 13 more years, died at the age of 91, this about a year and a half ago, had a beautiful long life. But having family around made a huge difference for him, because he went to the senior center and he bought a little Volkswagen convertible and was cruising around when we lived in California. So I really saw firsthand what it means when you can rally around your family. It's not like the culture. I mean, I come from an immigrant Italian family, right? So we kind of have a little bit of that, I would say, baked into our culture. But it really did, because he ate better. I mean, my wife's a dietitian. I, of course, and clinical nutritionist and into longevity. She adopted our lifestyle, and even at that older age of 79, you could see those years get added on that were productive years for him. And food was a big part of that. Let me tell you, it was a big part of that.
Oh, I'm sure. And it's really a blessing to be able to care for family like that when it comes time for the needs. I was the caregiver for my paternal grandparents for 2 years before they passed. And my mom, it was definitely a very strenuous time, but you know what? It grounded me. It definitely grounded me. I loved I loved getting to spend that time with them, for sure. And it's definitely a very important part, and it kind of makes you see things in a new perspective. One thing that I got to say about it, my grandmother, she was an amazing cook, but then she wasn't able to do the things that she was typically able to do. So actually, I adopted a lot of her recipes, and especially around the holidays, we brought out all of her favorites, and she was like, "You made this?" And it was like, "Oh my God, it's better than mine." It was like, I don't know about that, but it was lovely. It was lovely kind of getting to turn the tables and like all the stuff that she raised me on, able to give back to her. I thought that was really sweet.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing in regards to cooking all those meals, I had to go out and I had to find all the ingredients and the recipes and all that. And not all of them were really cheap. When you look into the best ingredients, is it more expensive to eat healthy? Yes or no? And then what are some of the things that people can do to try to limit those costs to live a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I think, if you're buying top of the line, you're going to find out that it's kind of pricey. But I think for a lot of people, go to a fast food restaurant and watch what people spend on a meal there. I mean, you can
it's
drop
crazy now.
$25 on two people eating fries and a burger, right? And a couple drinks, right?
Yep.
So I think that expense, I look at it and think, no, it's not that expensive. It's about changing your palate. There are some things you can do. Look, I try to get people to understand, look, you can buy frozen vegetables. If you're living alone and you're not able to buy a bunch of fresh produce because it's going to go bad, which is a huge waste of money, buy a bag of frozen vegetables. Vegetables that are frozen they're picked at their peak ripeness. And then they're flash frozen, which basically gets the majority of the nutrients that are going to be in that food is there at that peak moment of picking. So frozen vegetables are a great option because you can reseal them. You can get multiple meals out of them. Amen. And the other piece is just don't overcook them, right? Nobody likes mushy broccoli. So, yep. You want to work at, well, how do I cook with these? And I think that's a biggie. So, people don't eat enough vegetables. It's just that simple. I can tell you right now, I do a lot of advanced, cool types of programs with people, but the one thing I demand is you got to learn how to start eating veggies. Frozen makes it easy.
Yep.
And people think there's not good quality in it. Now, I'm not saying cans, because cans different because they superheat them and they get autoclaved for sterility. And before you know it, there may not be a lot of nutrients left in those, right? So it's really, I think frozen vegetables work. That's number one. Try to do meals and shop for what you're going to cook for that week. And I'll tell you what I mean by that is, when my wife and I became empty nesters, I started using actually a food delivery service, and then I would go to the grocery store for the other in-between things I needed. And the reason that worked for me is we got 5 dinners and 2 lunches, and we ordered some snacks. And guess what happened to our food bill? It went down by 50%.
Oh, wow.
So instead of going to the grocery store, and my father was a world-famous chef, and I love food. Wow. You're walking through the grocery store. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that. Yep. Ooh, I like that. Right? You're just going at it. Before you know it, you got $500 worth of food sitting in your grocery cart.
And they're done.
And that. And it cut our bill in half by doing that. And then it also makes you more aware. Well, how much am I eating? Because I don't know about you, but if you look at one of the biggest crises in our country, 50% of our U.S. population is either insulin resistant or a diabetic already. And one of the big ways you become insulin resistant or a person with diabetes is you eat your way to it. And then you don't move. You don't exercise, right? You don't manage your stress well. But in general, people eat too much, they eat too often, they eat too late, and then they don't get enough sleep, and they're under a lot of stress, and all that becomes a metabolic train wreck. Eating and looking at your serving size, I think also helps you because you start to make those meal plans with an appropriate amount of food instead of saying, hey, I'll eat that 4-pound roast. So I think that's really an important piece is understanding, planning out your meals. And then one of the other biggies, of course, is if you're old like me, you remember getting the Sunday paper and my mom would cut out all the coupons.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up.
And then And even bigger than that, I remember getting green stamps when we would go into the store, and my mom would buy food, and she'd get green stamps. And hey, if you collect enough green stamps, you get a pot, or you get a Ginsu knife, whatever it is, right? But the reality was, you used to get those things, and now it's even easier because most stores have apps, and you can look for what's on sale. So it's really I think important if people really want to get quality food. You got to work out a little bit, right? I'm going to get some frozen veggies. I'm going to look around and do some couponing. I'm going to try and plan my meals better. So all those things are things that I think people can start to think about, trying to really, change the way they're living in the new year and make a commitment that, hey, maybe the commitment is I want to lose some weight, or, gee, my joints hurt. Maybe if I eat better, it could help. right?
Yeah.
There's any number of reasons why to make that commitment. How about I want to live longer? Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely, to have like a fulfilled, sustainable life. Totally. And I'm glad that you brought up the couponing and all that. Besides the apps as well, I have like the rewards cards for like ShopRite and Stop and Shop. And I notice immediately is like what my bill would be with before using the card and what it would be after the card. And it's a significant savings. Absolutely. Before I even start loading in any extra coupons. So that's definitely something to look out for as well. It really makes a difference. And you're right. It is something to work towards. Something that, you know, I think has a weird rap with, there's a lot of reality shows that show like the extreme couponing and people kind of make jokes at that. But like there's such a benefit to couponing. What's the problem with saving money? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, look, where can that money go? It can go to buying your gas, which is not just food that's going up. Gas is going up. Your electric bill's going up. You know, trying to find a way that you can be smarter and have a good quality of life. I mean, you know, nothing wrong with that. I mean, yeah, you don't have to, you know, go overboard on it, but there's some simple things you can do before you walk into whatever you're going to go, you know, whatever store you're going to. And you're absolutely right. You see those savings right away, and that's very real. And, you know, the one thing that I think we have to address is that, you know, a lot of times people end up stress eating.
Yes.
You know, they reach for comfort food. They get home from work and there's a bag of potato chips sitting in the cupboard, and it's like, oh, I'm going to give you a big hug, right? and they eat the bag of potato chips. They don't count out a serving. They eat a bag of potato chips, and then they lick their finger to get the salt and the crumbs out of the bottom of the bag. And your brain goes, you finally got me satisfied, right? That's stress eating.
It's funny you say that because just the other day we have like one of those, what is it? Like the variety packs of chips. We had it left over from a party. We don't typically have chips in the house that often, but we had it left over. And I go for a bag of chips. I'm eating it. And my dad goes, like, I had one of those chips. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't fill me up. And I just go to him and I look at him dead in the eyes. It's like, it's to fill the void, not fill the stomach. You're right. It's the stress eating. That's what it's like.
It exactly is. And I spent a lot of time trying to explain that to people because they lose self-esteem because they think, oh, I'm weak. It's like, no, you're just stressed out. Take a walk, you know, learn to do breathing exercises, do something that's pleasurable because that'll help your food bill.
Yes.
You know, it literally helps the food bill. Don't go into a grocery store when you're feeling like you need some comfort food, right? You'll buy everything in the place and, you know,
you'll never leave the candy aisle.
Yeah. And look, here's the thing. I mean, why this is so important, honestly, is that, you know, heart disease is the number one killer in our country. And diabetes is a major reason why people get heart disease.
Yeah.
And the more we can teach people how to eat quality foods and to make smarter choices, you know, the better off they're going to be. And it's just like the nutrients that people take. And I know we'll get to talking about nutrients. Post-COVID pandemic, people started taking more vitamins and minerals. And even that's gotten expensive. So you got to find things that are, you know, what's going to multitask for me? What can I get that's going to provide multiple benefits for me?
Absolutely.
And I think that's another important part of lifestyle is, you know, get your exercise in and, you know, as little as 21 minutes, 5 days a week can reduce your risk of heart disease and diabetes. Just walking.
That's significant.
Now, do I think people, it really is, right? And a lot of people don't even get that in. And I think we really have to start to make these efforts with shopping, looking at the blue zones. You know, when you think about the blue zones, I mean, you've got people 85 years old that are walking up 19-degree elevations with no problem. Like you'll be huffing and puffing to keep up with it. And I don't know that we're going to do that. I don't know if we're going to accomplish that, but we sure can start to try. And so they're all really important, you know, pieces of the puzzle.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Just trying to, one of the things is you can't do it all right away, but you can at least chisel away at it day by day. And I think that's one of the big things about it. And we can find little things in order to try to make it easier. You mentioned walking, for instance. I have a treadmill at my desk. I have like one of those desk treadmills where it's real easy, standing desk, and that's where I get my walking in if I can't go out some days. You know, I love going to the gym, but it's nice just to have that while I'm working, and it keeps me mobile, it keeps me upright, and honestly, I'm more productive that way. So that's something that I do, and I recommend it to anybody. With it being the holidays, there's something I really want to bring up right now. A lot of holiday parties, a lot of holiday drinking. Alcohol is very, of course, very dangerous in a number of different ways, just getting drunk and everything, but also it definitely adds on the calories. It affects the organs. And now that the holiday season's almost over, we're about to enter January. A lot of people do dry January. And I think one celebrity in particular who's very big on this, Tom Holland, last year, he discussed his dry January and how that dry January, he extended it, and now he's totally sober and hasn't had a drink, and he feels so much better out of it. And I recommend anybody check out that interview with him and Jay Shetty. But could we talk about for a moment here about dry January and why people should consider doing it, and then once they've gotten through it, why they should consider extending it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, alcohol is expensive.
Yes.
And here, same reality here. People go, well, I just have a glass of wine a night. And then I go, do you have 5 ounces of wine? Do you have a goblet of wine? Right? It's like the 5-ounce pour becomes the 9-ounce pour becomes the 9-ounce pour plus a 5-ounce pour.
Everybody's pour is different.
Everybody's pour is different. That's right. And so that adds up. The bill adds up. It's interesting. I'll tell people, look, I want you to take this aged garlic extract because it reduces coronary artery plaque progression. It reverses vulnerable plaque. It lowers your blood pressure. It keeps your bone density. And hey, that product might cost you $30 a month. And people, oh my God, I can't afford to buy a vitamin like that. There's 900 publications on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have a problem buying a $30 bottle of wine and drinking it in a day.
Yep.
The one thing I noticed, and especially with the smartwatch revolution, which is great for me because people are using a Whoop band or an Aura ring, or they're looking at their REM sleep and their deep sleep. And I just ask them, just look at your sleep when you drink versus when you don't. Mm. And invariably people will say, I can't believe the difference in the quality of my sleep or how late you eat at night. Those are big things. And so alcohol, I'm not anti-alcohol. I enjoy a cocktail here and there, but at the same time, it's not a part of my daily menu. People will make alcohol more a part of their daily menu than vegetables. Yes.
Oh, I know those people. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and look, it's important that you decide that you want a lifestyle that promotes health and that you want a lifestyle that promotes longevity and that you're reaching for that. And it doesn't mean you can't have fun. It doesn't mean you can't have fun with your diet or, enjoying, a couple cocktails when you're at a party. I mean, all that stuff's good, but it's what are you doing day to day that counts. Now, I mentioned that aged garlic extract because I think it's so important because it's, heart disease #1 killer. And, in dietary supplements, a lot of times they do 1 or 2 studies, and then they hang their hat on that because that's the minimum amount of studies to make an FTC claim. Aged garlic, 900 publications, multiple human trials from leading cardiologists and research centers in the world. And, you don't get the stinky rose effect, so you're not going to smell like garlic. And the biggest thing is that it has so much evidence that it reduces coronary artery plaque, that your blood vessels. I mean, if you're old enough, you heard the term hardening of the arteries.
Yes.
Hardening of the arteries. What's hardening of the arteries? It's your arteries getting stiff.
Yep.
And so the reversal of arteries being stiff means that you're going to carry oxygen to your tissues, and you're going to carry oxygen to your brain. We're all worried about dementia and cognitive function these days. Well, you know what the nickname in the healthcare profession is that dementia is type 3 diabetes.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard that. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's because you lose the regulation of glucose in your brain, which needs glucose. You need it. And when you lose that, you start to create a lot of what's called oxidative stress, which is, if you want to think of it in everyday terms, it's the rate of rusting in your body. Wow. So your brain rusts. And a rusty brain means, oh, wait a second. what's the name of that again? Where did I leave my keys?
Mm-hmm.
I can't bring that word up. It's important to understand that all these things, like the blue zone concept, eating more vegetables. And I tell people, fruit's good too, right? But 3 vegetables for every fruit. And try to pick fruits that aren't as high in sugar. So berries,
yes.
An apple, a pear, that kind of stuff. But, 3 vegetables every fruit's a great rule of thumb. And that doesn't mean 3 baked potatoes, right? That means, get the cauliflower, get the greens, get the broccoli, and a little bit of potato too.
Absolutely.
But it's important, really important that people start to align with these. If people are interested in that aged garlic, you can go to they've got great publications. There's only one company that makes it. It's called Kyolic. But 60 years on the market. And so I really love when I see like ingredients that are in the natural world that have so much science, especially post-pandemic when people are reaching for things to improve their immune health, improve their cardiovascular health, in addition to the importance of diet and exercise.
Absolutely. Wow. You blew my mind with a few of those stats there, and especially the type 3 diabetes there for dementia. I've never heard that term before, but it just makes so much sense. And wow, I'm blown away. Thank you for all of this. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's Public Affairs and Issues program. We've been speaking with Jim LaValle, national longevity expert, clinical pharmacist, and author of books like Cracking the Metabolic Code. We've been talking a lot about how we could live like people in blue zones, such as like in Japan or Greece. A lot of you hear sometimes the Mediterranean diet, something along those lines. We talk about ways that you can get your food, healthy food, for cheaper. Talk about the couponing, talking about just better ways of longevity and just to have a better life, especially New Year's resolutions coming up, 2024. You want to be ready for that. You don't want to drop that resolution pretty much once January is over. You want to be able to make those habits stick and lead on through the whole rest of the year. And I think everything that Jim has said is a perfect outline on how to work towards that. So, Jim, I really appreciate all your expertise. I would love to have you on again. This show needs to be longer. It really does at this point. Jim, where can we find information that you've talked about today, or where can people find your book or information on you? What's the best way to find everything and to get in contact?
Sure, they can go to jimlavalle.com. I've written 26 books and I don't know how many books, and so people can reach me at jimlavalle.com. You could go to, once again, if they're interested in something for heart health, I'm just super passionate about it. It's our number one killer. One nutrient, Kyolic, and Kyolic.com. Please look that up. I'm not a salesperson, but I've used it in clinical practice, and I've seen people's blood pressure go down. I've seen their heart rates improve. I've seen their lipids get better. And we need people, we need more people to know that there's natural approaches to those things. So really glad you had me on, and I would love to come back. So just let me know, and I will be here.
No, we will definitely have to make that happen. And again, all links and information will be in the description of this episode. So all that we've talked about is going to be right there for you to check out. There is so much more for you to discover in 2024. And I think Jim LaValle has certainly opened up a lot of doors for you. So again, Jim, thank you for being here on In Touch.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You as well. And Happy New Year. This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Jim LaValle. To find more on Jim LaValle, such as his book, Cracking the Metabolic Code, and more, visit jimlavalle.com. To check out Kyolic and other health supplements that Jim discussed in this episode, visit kyolic.com. Of course, all links and information can be found in the description of this episode. I've been your host, Connor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time. Merry Christmas.